Good morning, everyone. I hope you are fine. In our lecture today, we will discuss chapters 22 to 24 in Wuthering Heights,
And
a
regarding
novel by Emma.
chi- however, it will include the following characters: Edgar, Linton, Kathy, Nellie, and Heathcliff. Setting, places, Wuthering Heights, and
Wuthering
Thrush
Heights
chapter
range.
22.
Moving on
We
to
will
before
discuss
a
the
woman,
summary
chapter 22,
and
that
the
actually
commentary
includes
of this
four
chapter.
important points. The first point, however, is about Kathy's love for her father. So during the winter, Kathy has little time to think of Linton because she is nursing her father, whom she thinks is dying. So Catherine's love for her father, Edgar Linton, is further emphasized in this chapter. And this is what she says to Nellie. I care for nothing in comparison with Papa, and I'll never, while I have my senses, do any act or say a word to vex him. I love him better than myself. The second important point in this chapter is the accident. While walking one day, Kathy's hat blows over the garden wall. Nellie helps Kathy over the wall to fetch it, but Kathy cannot scale the other side by herself. While Nellie searches for a key to open the gate, Heathcliff appears. So here the accident of Kathy's hat is so important because it causes her encounter with Heathcliff, which is so important too. Because this encounter leads Heathcliff to press on Kathy. So the third important point is about Heathcliff's plan. He chides her for writing letters to Linton for a few months and then suddenly stopping. He claims that she is playing games with Linton's affection and that he is now dying of a broken heart. So, as we have just said, because of Edgar's illness, Kathy had been forbidden to correspond with young Linton, and she was feeling very dull and sad. In the course of another ramble, Kathy and Nellie once again ran into Heathcliff. Heathcliff told Kathy that ever since she had stopped writing to young Linton, the boy had been feeling depressed and that his health had been declining. He urged her to visit young Linton in order to comfort him. He even threatened her by saying that he had in his possession all the letters she had written to young Linton, and that he would send those letters to her father in case she did not accept his suggestion to visit young Linton, who was longing to see her. So, as you have seen, here we have Heathcliff's pressure on Catherine in order to achieve his goals and plans. So, the last important point in this chapter is the success of Heathcliff's plan. So, as he tells Kathy that he will be away of a week, he encourages her to visit her cousin Linton. Kathy feels extremely guilty about what Heathcliff has told her. So she and Nellie take off for Wuthering Heights the next morning. So far as the plot is concerned, we here learn that Heathcliff is determined to carry out his purpose of bringing about an alliance between Cathy and his son Linton. He speaks to Cathy about his son's love for her in such glowing and forceful terms that Cathy is deeply moved. And here is one of the sentences that he speaks in this connection. He pines for kindness as well as love, and a kind word from you would be his best medicine. Actually, Heathcliff's purpose is served because, as I have just said, Cathy makes up her mind to pay a visit to young Linton to assuage his feelings. This incident actually shows not only Heathcliff's firmness of purpose, but also his understanding of the mind of a young girl like Cathy. His words to Cathy really carry conviction, but we know very well that he is only playing a game in order to acquire
Okay, after
her
giving this
father's
summary,
property.
we will move on to the two important points in the commentary of chapter 22. So, in chapter 22's commentary, we have two important points. The first point is about Kathy's loyalty to Linton. Again, Nellie is convinced to do something that she should probably not do, escorting Kathy to Wuthering Heights. Nonetheless, Kathy is determined to prove her loyalty to her sick cousin and is eager to dote on him. The second important point here is Nellie's devotion to Kathy that shows the difference between Kathy and her mother, Catherine. So Nellie's own devotion to Kathy also traces the difference between Catherine and her daughter. Because of Catherine's selfishness and willfulness, Nellie had no trouble contradicting Catherine and making her life miserable. But with Kathy, Nellie's actions are different. Nellie is truly fond of Kathy and therefore has very little difficulty rationalizing a way to agree to Kathy's requests.
Moving on to the summary and commentary of chapter 23. So the main characters in chapter 23 are Edgar Linton, Kathy, and Nellie. Setting, places, Wuthering Heights and Thrushcross Grange, time before 1801.
Okay, regarding to the summary of chapter 23, actually here we have three important points. The first point is about Kathy's visit to Wuthering Heights. So, in accordance with her strong wish, Kathy went to Wuthering Heights to visit young Linton. And of course, she was accompanied by Nellie. So both Nellie and Kathy travel in the rain all the way to Wuthering Heights. On his part, Heathcliff is indeed not home, and Linton is more pathetic than ever. So he was really in a very bad state of health. He was not only ailing, but irritable and very depressed. However, as soon as he saw Kathy, he felt much consoled. He told her that he was terribly sick of the persons around him, Harrington, Joseph, and even Zillah. Harrington said young Linton was a brute who mocked at him. He not only hated Harrington, but all the others also, because they were odious beings. He said that he had been feeling much vexed because she had never called on him. The second important point here is Kathy's encounter with Linton. Actually, in her encounter with Linton complains about the servants, as I have just said, and whines to Kathy. First for not visiting, and then for writing instead of visiting. He also mentions the idea of marriage. Linton's talk of love vexes Kathy, and she pushes his chair, sending him into a coughing fit. He uses this to claim that she injured him and worsened his condition. He guilts her into thinking she can nurse him back to health. So, as you have seen, Kathy here was very touched by Linton's condition and told him that next to her papa and Nellie, she loved him better than anybody living. But her father hated his father, and that made things difficult. Young Linton said that his father really scorned her father, whom his father called a sneaking fool. To this, Kathy retorted that his father was a wicked man because he had deserted his wife Isabella, who was her aunt. Young Linton persisted in defending his father, while Kathy, with equal emphasis, defended hers. There was thus an angry scene between the two here, but the very next moment they both subsided. So Kathy then told young Linton that she was sorry to have hurt him. He replied that she had hurt him so much that he would lie awake all night. He also requested her to keep visiting him in order to cure him of his illness. Kathy assured him that they would now be friends. Actually, here, Kathy has a feeling of her maturity. In the third point, we have Kathy's nursing to both Edgar and Nellie. So, because Nellie catches a cold due to spending the day traveling in wet weather, Kathy spends her days nursing both Nellie and her father. But unbeknownst to Nellie and Edgar, she spends her nights riding across the moors to visit Linton. So on their return to the Grange, Kathy said that Nellie should not act as her jailer and that the Grange was not a prison. She said that she was now almost 17, almost a woman, and that she was certain that young Linton would recover quickly if she could look after him. So here, Kathy is actually taking care of everyone in her life. Her father, Edgar, her nanny, Nellie, and her cousin, Linton. Moving on to the commentary of chapter 3. Actually, what is important in the commentary of chapter 23 is the function of Nellie's illness, that is to say, sickness. So, for many critics, Nellie's sickness is a contrived plot point that is entirely too convenient to be believable. However, most critics concede that sickness was possible, if not plausible. Therefore, it does not detract greatly from the narrative and does aid the advancement of Heathcliff's plan for revenge. Instrumental in Heathcliff's plan is for Cathy to marry Linton. And in order for that to happen, he needs her to care for him.
So, when Kathy discusses her attraction to Linton, her words echo her mother. He'll soon do as I direct him, with some slight coaxing. Kathy, like her mother, enjoys the notion of having control over a man. Now, the last chapter to be discussed in this lecture is chapter 24, its summary and commentary.
First of all, the main characters in chapter 24 are Kathy, Nellie, Harrington, Edgar, and Linton. Setting, places, Wuthering Heights, and Thrushcross Grange. Time before 1801.
Now, the summary of chapter 24 actually includes three important points. The first one is Kathy's recurrent visit to Wuthering Heights. So after Nellie recovers, she notices that Kathy is agitated. In the evening, Kathy pretends to retire early, but when Nellie cannot find her anywhere in the house, she waits in Kathy's room for her to return. Kathy, on her part, attempts a feeble lie at first, but soon admits the truth. So when Nellie recovered from her illness, Catherine told her that she had been going to Wuthering Heights almost every day in order to meet young Linton, and she gave Nellie full details of her visits. There had been plenty of conversation between her and young Linton. Though there was a great mutual attraction between the two, there was a difference also. Young Linton wanted to lie in an ecstasy of peace, while Kathy wanted all things to sparkle and dance in a glorious jubilee. Another incident that had occurred was that she had found Harrington to be almost illiterate and had therefore made fun of him, whereupon he had been rough in his talk, both towards her and young Linton. So, the second important point here is Kathy's encounter with Linton. So, on one of her visits, Harrington stops her and tells her that he can read the name above the door. However, Kathy asks if he knows the numbers, and when he can see it, he does not. She again makes fun of him. This enrages Harrington, and during her visit with Linton, Harrington storms into the room and forces Linton upstairs. Later, Harrington attempts to apologize to Kathy, but she refuses to listen to him. The third important point here is Kathy's encounter with Linton. Well, Kathy visits 3 days later, but Linton blames her for the previous trouble, so she leaves. When she returns 2 days later, she tells Linton this is her last visit, but this news causes him trouble and he apologizes for his behavior. So on one of these visits, young Linton had told Catherine that her kindness toward him had made him love her deeper than before. He has said that he was a worthless fellow, bad in temper and bad in spirit, and that if she wanted to leave him, she could say goodbye in order to get rid of one who must be a source of annoyance to her. But these words had moved Kathy to tears, so that both of them had cried much of the time that they were together on that occasion. Nellie, on her part, listens to Kathy's tale and then immediately tells Edgar everything. He forbids Kathy to continue visiting Linton, but says he will write and invite Linton to visit the Grange. So, after giving Nellie a full account of these visits to Wuthering Heights, Kathy said that now she could not be prevented from going to that place. At the same time, her visit to that place would greatly hurt her father. She asked Nellie if she could keep her visits a secret from her father. However, as I have just said, Nellie didn't listen, and she immediately tells Edgar everything. Now, in respect to the commentary of chapter 24, actually, we have two important points. The first point is about Kathy as the primary narrator. So, in this chapter, Kathy serves as the primary narrator, telling Nellie, who in turn tells Lockwood about her evening visits to Wuthering Heights. Many readers question Kathy's devotion to Milton, for he does not seem particularly agreeable. Again, Kathy ridicules Harriet, but this time her words lead to an injury for Linton. Unbelievably, this is an incident that Linton holds Kathy accountable for. In doing so, he is remaining true to his self-centered, annoying character. The second important point is about Nolly, who changes her character for the first time. So Nellie, however, abruptly changes her character for the first time. She does the responsible, adult thing and tells Edgar almost everything about Kathy and Linton's developing relationship. What she does not tell him, however, is the extent of Linton's illness. And this ends up providing Edgar a false sense of security that his daughter might eventually marry and keep her family home. That was the end of our lecture today. For further reading, please refer to these references. Next lecture, I will discuss chapters 25 to 27 in Wuthering Heights. Thank you very much for your time and good luck.